have a question for you. What's something you did in your past that now gives you the absolute ick?
Oh my God. There are so many. Yikes.
Like you thought something was totally normal at the time, and now you look back and you're like, wow, I really thought that behavior was okay.
Yeah, like the way that you acted in situationships, or the way that you handled friendships, or just the things that you tolerated that, gives me the ick.
Exactly, girl. Today's episode is basically us holding ourselves accountable.
We are roasting our past selves.
Our pick me eras, chaotic situationship behavior, all of it.
And the funny part is, every woman listening probably has her own version of this.
Hey, friends, welcome back to the Sisterhood Tea Party podcast. I'm Stephanie.
And I'm Jessica, and today's episode is something we've joked about a lot, but we realized it would actually be really fun to unpack.
We're calling this episode, We Gave Ourselves the Ick.
Which basically means rather than sharing all these external icks that we have about other people and other things, we're looking back at different phases of our own lives and acknowledging the behaviors that now make us cringe.
And listen, this is not about shaming our past selves.
Maybe a little, but no.
Well,
It is about growth and reflection. And honestly, I think it's going to be kind of hilarious.
I agree, because if you can't laugh at your own behavior, you probably haven't grown that much.
So let's start with a phase I think almost every woman has experienced at some point.
I feel like almost every woman has had some version of a pick me era. You know exactly what I mean. The phase where you're trying really hard to be the cool girl, pretending you're super low maintenance, or saying things like, I just get along better with guys, or acting like you're above. That just made me physically saying that. Or acting like you're above things that you absolutely care about.
Yeah, this is the I'm not like other girls phase, which like I've said. I hate it. I hate that I've said
Yep,
that. I am just like other girls and I love you all, but I've said it.
I've definitely said it, unfortunately. And at the time, you think that behavior is working in your favor. You think you're being chill, easygoing, unbothered. But when I look back now, some of that behavior honestly gives me the ick. And not even some of that, all of it gives me the ick.
Yeah, same. I think a lot of us thought, and look, if you're on the younger generation of our listeners, it is different now. Y'all have maybe an extreme level of awareness. Therefore, you probably have your own challenges there, but like we didn't have that level of awareness. Okay, so a lot of us thought that being the cool girl meant that you were more desirable somehow. That's what we were taught.
Yes, and that was our whole energy growing up, and especially high school and college. The less you asked for, the better. But now I look back at that and I'm like, girl, stand up. Like,
Yep.
girl, come
Okay,
on.
I need to hear your pick me moment. Like, what is something you did during that era? Like, and again, prefacing again, guys, this was like college and high school days.
Mhm.
But what did you do during that era that really makes you cringe now?
Okay, I have to take a deep breath before this. And you know the backstory behind this now. So I remember in my college days, I was involved in different organizations, and I met a ton of different people. And in that, I remember in order to get a guy to like me from my chemistry class, I told him that I was really, really good at chemistry, like really, really good, and that I'd help him study. And he was like, okay, cool. Like, I'm down for that. And I think low key, this man had an idea that I probably had a crush. So he was just going with it. So while studying, every time he'd talk about something he was interested in, I would pretend to get into it. So I had something to talk about with him every time I saw him. And in addition to that, I did it on purpose. I would take attention away from other girls that were talking to him. I'd be like, oh my God, hey, do you remember that we talked about, like, I would interrupt conversations to get him away from other girls. Mind you, this man never once asked me to be his girlfriend, never once took me out on a date, but here I was throwing myself at him and talking about crap that I actually did not care about at the time, but I had to pretend that I did. Turns out I was truly a fraud because I failed chemistry and he got an A.
That
And
makes
so
it better.
now, and so now you will never catch me help a man like that in any capacity. Okay, that gave me the major ick. I just, no. No, no,
Well,
no.
the cherry on top is that he got the A and you didn't. Like he was probably like girl, you
No,
need the help.
literally, he was like, he like clocked it. He was like, are you sure? I'm like, oh yeah, yeah, I just had an off day. How about an off semester? So,
Oh
oh
my
my
God.
God. Anyway, I want to hear yours. I want to hear about this.
Yeah, I mean, look, we've all been there. Mine is pretty similar. I don't know that there's like a true single moment where I like woke up and I was like, what did I just do? That was the ick. I think it like over time and now that I can look back, I'm like, damn. I pretty sure I used to do this, not I'm pretty sure. I know. I used to do this thing where I would act like I liked what boys liked. And whatever boys liked, of course I liked them because that's how you're going to be a cool girl. That's how you're going to get their attention. Blah, 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 blah. Ick. So like I think sports is a huge example of this. Like I do like sports and I do have my teams, but I used to act like I was so huge in sports and I could hang with the guys and I could have a combo about it. And honestly, now I'm like I'm bored actually. I want to talk about my teams and maybe a handful of players that I give a shit about. Outside of that, if it doesn't affect me, I don't really care that much. And and like sports is just one example, but I did this all the freaking time when I was younger, where it could have been cars. I don't give a fuck about cars, but like, hey, back then I could talk cars. I don't give a fuck about motorcycles. Back then I was like, ooh, you have a motorcycle? I love motorcycles. Let me get on the back of your motorcycle. Like just any other shit that I really don't care about, but I thought it was so cool to care about because the boys did. Ick! Ugh! Major ick. Major ick.
What's so funny about this is we convinced ourselves that like this is exactly our personality. You thought, yes, I am a car girl, I'm a motorcycle girl. This is who I am. This is my personality. And it's like, what?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, we were just avoiding being honest about what we actually wanted and who we actually were because we were just trying to be picked, which is so dumb. But I think if we're being honest, like this pick me era is just the warm up. Okay. There's more icks to come.
100%, because the real chaos usually showed up in dating. Okay. Situationship behavior is where I personally cringe the hardest because I think we've all had moments where we were doing emotional gymnastics over someone who was just existing.
Yeah. Whether it was over analyzing text messages with your friends for hours or reading into the punctuation or convincing yourself that someone's mixed signals was actually meaningful at all. It's like, what is that movie called? Like, he's just not that into you.
Mm-hmm.
That was made for our generation.
It really was. It really was. And now getting into like, social media and analyzing, oh, he liked my story but didn't respond to my text and all of these different things. Like, what? Pretending that you're totally fine with being casual and chill when you are absolutely not casual or chill. I don't know why I ever claimed to be either of those things, but I would do it just for the sake of a man. What the fuck was I thinking?
We've all been there. Let me ask you though, when you look back on your dating life, what's one behavior, like very specifically now, that really gives you the ick?
Yeah, there's several. Unfortunately, I have to share this one. But I would tell guys that I wasn't like the others. I would actually say that in conversation that I wasn't like the other girls. And that I'm truly just so chill and I'm one of the guys. Why would I ever say that I am one of the guys? What? I was not. Okay. What was actually wrong with me? Okay. It is yuck. It's so gross. That is the worst. When I would tell guys that I was chill, I was that girl, and that I'm just one of the guys, and I'm no, I wasn't like the others. It's so embarrassing. It's so embarrassing.
I feel like this episode is turning into a formal apology to all women because we were
Yeah, it is.
so
I
ick.
have to apologize for who I was back then. I am not that woman now, but I'm taking full ownership of that shit back in the day. Okay, I didn't know any better.
Yeah,
I
I
didn't
think
know any better.
mine's worse. I mean, the major dating ick for me was liking any guy with a girlfriend. Ew. Like shock on your face. I know I'm a changed woman. Like never in a million years would I do this now. You did
I
not
did
see that
not
coming.
read it. I missed that as I was going through it. I'm like, wait a minute.
Yeah, no, I mean full 180. Like even if I wasn't married today, if a man with a girl even tried to hit on me, I'm the girl who's immediately now going to go tell her because what I'm not going to do is not be a girl's girl. And I just hate that I was ever that girl, but I mean, there was a time, and it was like same energy of like, I'm different. I'll be the different. Absolutely not. I'm so sorry, girls. I was awful. I was awful. I was a pick me.
We were really embarrassing. And where did we get the audacity? Truly. Like, what?
It's so cringe. I hate it so
It's so bad.
much.
It's so bad. But let's be fair. We didn't just give ourselves the ick in dating. Friendships had their moments too.
I think growing up also means realizing that sometimes we were the problem in our friendships. And this is a good one because we do talk a lot about bad friends on this. So, we've made some mistakes too.
Yeah, we have to show that we were bad friends too at one point. But expecting friends to always be available, taking things personally that weren't really personal, or avoiding difficult conversations and hoping things would just fix themselves. I feel like a lot of us used to handle conflict by either just shutting down completely or being fully passive aggressive.
Yeah. Okay. So then let me ask, what is something this is fun too because we've known each other for so long. And sometimes I'm
Hmm.
like, how are you ever my friend? But what is because I was
Because
awful,
I've
not because
changed.
you, because me, I was awful. But what is something that you used to do in friendships that now gives you the ick,
I actually didn't do anything. I'm a perfect friend. So,
obviously?
anyway, for real. I actually used to be very passive in friendships. It's weird because like when I met you and met Carlin and everything, I don't think I was ever passive. Actually, Carlin and I were mean to each other at first, but
You were mean to me too. You were mean to me at first
oh,
too.
oh shit. Okay, so maybe that's the other thing. In friendships, I was just mean to people that I met and turned them into friends. Okay, so there's two. This is the two part. First thing I used to do in friendship is that I used to fully judge people before I became like I made them my friends. So I judged you and Carlin pretty harshly
Mm.
before I made y'all my friends. And I'm like, damn, why did I do that? But here we are 12 plus years later, like going strong.
I
But that
passed the
was one thing.
test. I passed
You
the
passed the
test.
test. But on the other side of that, I used to be also very passive in other friendships. So I was not the friend that took initiative at all. And I was kind of like, whatever you want to do. Like, and I wouldn't initiate conversations. I wouldn't do any of that. I was just kind of like hanging out. And I
Mm.
think part of that mentality was like, well, I have a bunch of other friends. So if this one doesn't reach out, but like I have others that will, like, that was the mindset I had. And that's like so icky because it's like, oh, you just expect people to be your friend and expect people to just like hang out with you. Like it was really bizarre. Ultimately, some of those friendships, or not even some, all of those friendships that I had that passive relationship with, they just fizzled out because of my lack of effort. And so that's very
Mm.
icky.
Mm.
Hmm.
We love the self-awareness.
Yeah, I feel much better now. So
Like off my chest.
off my chest. Okay, what about you?
Yeah, I think so I feel like I was similar to you in that like I was very much I was in an era where I wanted to be friends with everyone and I had all these very shallow relationships, but it also meant that I would give my time to people that were super shitty, which was like not great for me or them. And because I didn't want to be mean, right? Like, I mean, I
Hmm.
was literally, you probably remember this. I was the girl who would go to the party. Every single person I met that night, I was getting a photo with. And I was uploading it on Facebook the next day and I was tagging them. And now we were Facebook friends and now we were going to be best friends. Like, never talk to those people ever again. Right.
Oh
I have
no.
albums filled with people that I have no idea who are. And then, but for some of them, they would become more friendships. And some of them were either we just didn't have anything in common or didn't have the same beliefs or were toxic in some way, but I didn't want to be mean. So if they talked to me, I was going to talk to them. And so then our friendship would be just toxic and miserable when we were just clearly not a good match to be friends and it turned into drama instead of just walking away. It was weird. It was like I was
Yeah.
casting the net so wide because I needed everybody to like me and be my friend that I would stay in these friendships that like, neither of us were having a good time instead of just walking
Right.
away.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we did those friendships just to have a friend. Like, it wasn't even like because
Yeah.
we act, you know what I mean? We didn't actually care. It's like, oh, what we're doing, we're in college, we're supposed to have a lot of friends. That was the mentality I think that we had. We needed a bunch of people around us at all times.
Yeah.
And similar to you, thinking about those parties that we would go to,
Yeah.
all those people, hell no.
I don't want to
Like,
be around those people. Absolutely not.
absolutely not. And yet here we were in those settings, and we are just like, okay, vibing, living our best life. And we were,
Yeah.
and looking back now, it's like, no, 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 no,
Mm-mm.
no. What were we thinking?
Yeah, I think that is the part of the maturity, realizing that everyone was just learning how to navigate friendships and relationships and figuring out who you are as a person and what your standards are in a friendship and all of those things. But there's one phase that I do think that everyone also goes through.
hmm The emotional suppression phase. So the I don't care phase, where something clearly has bothered you, but you were determined to act completely unbothered.
Yeah, pretending not to care felt like a strength at one point in time. Like if you could act so chill, it meant you were emotionally involved. But when I look back at it now, I realize how much I was just avoiding really honest truths and conversations. And I think a lot of us thought pretending not to care made us look stronger.
Yeah, I would agree with that. When it really delayed the moment where we had to actually say what we felt, right? So I want to ask you this. What was a moment where you clearly were not okay, but you still acted like everything was fine?
Ugh, I hate this. Okay, let me preface. I was very young and I was very naive, and you would never catch me doing this again. Uh, but I was at one point so hung up on this guy that I would get so wasted and then get like, and pre-wasted, I was like, I don't care. He's such an asshole. He's a loser, blah, blah, blah. I think everyone around me was probably like, okay, girl, like whatever you say, you're so over it. But in my head, I was like, fuck this man. I'm so over it. And then I would get so wasted that I would get like violent crying, hysterical, throwing my phone. And it was like this for I don't know how long, way too long. But like, every night it would be like, I'm so cool, blah, blah, blah. I'm fine. I'm living my best single girl life. And then by the end of the night, I was a hot mess, full crash out before the word crash out was a thing, being taken care of, maybe even drunk calling him at the time, like embarrassing. And it just gives me the ick even thinking I was ever a girl at one point because clearly during the day when I was sober, I was suppressing a lot of shit. I was drinking a lot that I probably shouldn't have been to deal with it. And then it was, sorry, friends, now deal with my hot mess ass. It was awful, awful, awful.
You know, that is growth, realizing it's like, whoa, what the hell was going on with me back then? And that's the thing, it's like that is a very relatable situation that all of us have been in some capacity, right? Of where you go like, oh yeah, everything's completely fine. And then next moment there's a full-blown crash out. And it's like, wait, I thought you didn't care. It's like, I do care. Like it's a whole thing.
Yeah, what was your I don't know, maybe crash out, but your I don't care moment.
Yeah, I don't know if it was like a crash. Maybe it was a crash out low key, but I think it was maybe internal. Anyway, but I think about actually my first breakup that I had. I acted very cool girl. So I had a phone conversation and I broke up with this guy over the phone because there was just some shady shit. I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. And like, obviously, I had my moment. He was crying on the phone, boo hoo, whatever. And so I didn't really sleep well that night and I had to go to work the next morning. Everybody at work kind of knew about the guy there. And I remember somebody asked me, like, oh, like, how are you? And so and so. And I was like, oh, we just broke up last night. And they're like, oh my God, like, are you okay? And I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm fine. And he was such a loser. Like, he's missing out, like, all this stuff. I was very like, oh yeah, that's me. And then I would go to the bathroom literally every like 2 hours and like break down and like crash out and cry. And then someone would walk in and I'd be like, and they're like, are you okay? I'm like, oh yeah, I just had something in my eye. Literally lying about what was actually going on instead of just owning up to the fact that this man fucked me up a little bit. And I just was like, dang, he wasn't even all that. And yet I felt like my entire world was crashing down. And it was just like, I had this whole crash out moment in the bathroom at work. People would walk in and I would lie about it. It was a whole thing. And I was just pretending that it didn't bother me when it very much bothered me that entire week.
You know what though? I don't think any crash out has ever been over a good man.
Right. That's true.
You know what I mean? Like
Right.
it's
Because are
always
we,
that's part of
yeah,
the crash out experience because you're like, I fucking know that I don't deserve this shit or that I'm better
yeah.
than this or whatever. And so then you like
That was the whole
project
reason I broke
that.
up with him. Exactly.
Yeah, you made the hard decision, but also you're devastated because you didn't want it to go that way. Like, yeah, I'm
No.
I'm convinced that if they were really a good person, I don't know. I don't think it would be a crash out because then the crash out really comes from the almost like the embarrassment, the hate, the anger of it all, right? I mean, and plus the
Yeah,
devastation.
100%. Yeah, exactly. I think back to that and I was like, dang girl, get it together. But you know what? That's growth. That's
It's
life. It
growth.
happens. I look back and I'm like, you could have owned your feelings, but I was young. It's fine.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, friend. This episode was honestly a little humbling, but also very freeing at the same time. But before we close out, it's time for our last drop of tea of the day.
Your past self isn't embarrassing. She was just learning, but also it's okay to be a little bit embarrassed of her.
Growth means you can look back and recognize behaviors that no longer align with who you are now.
And honestly, if you've never given yourself the ick, you probably haven't grown enough yet.
It's true. If this episode made you laugh or cringe a little, send it to a friend who remembers your chaotic eras.
And follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at Sisterhood Tea Party. We love hearing from you all.
And if you enjoyed today's episode, it would mean a lot if you left us a quick 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. It really helps us grow.
Thanks for hanging out with us today. Bye, friends.